May wrap up. I read 11 books this month, which is kind of crazy. Okay, one's like a novella, well, one's like a short story, one's a novella, so, but whatever. Still calling it a win. This month was kind of weird for me. Like, at the beginning of the month, all I wanted to do was reread books, and I, like, couldn't decide between two books. I ended up rereading both of them, but kind of at the same time. It was weird. And then I kind of went through this phase for like a week and a half where I wasn't reading at all. I didn't know what I wanted to read. Like, I was very confused and conflicted and all of that. And then I picked up a book, which I will talk about when I get there, and that just kicked everything into gear for the rest of the month. The book I finished this month was The Madness of Lord Ian McKenzie by Jennifer Ashley. This was a reread for me. I believe I read this last year, but it may have been 2015. I can't remember. I gave it 5 stars. Again, it ends faster than I would have liked it to, but other than that, it is just as good as it was the first time I read it. This is a historical romance, and it is about a woman who is a widow and a man. Everyone calls him mad and thinks he's crazy. He was locked up for a time, but really he's autistic. Like, is basically, like, they don't know that obviously because that wasn't a term then, but basically he's on like the autism spectrum. So I really enjoyed this. This is the first of the Mackenzies and McBride's books, and Beth and Ian are my favorite couple, and they continue to be. That actually, reading that made me want to read another book that has similar themes kind of in it, and reread. So I got it from the library. I already had to return it, and that's Flowers from the Storm by Laura Kinsall. I did give it 5 stars. I did a video, like a book review of this, in a video when I read it originally. It's about a man who, she never says what happens to him, and I don't think there's an author's note or anything. I kind of just assume that he has like an aneurysm or something, or maybe a stroke, but he's kind of young to have a stroke. And he loses a lot of his mental faculties, mostly just being able to communicate with people. So he's like pretty there in his head. You actually go in his head in the story, so you actually do know what he's thinking, and it is very jumbled, but it makes sense, and he can't communicate what he needs and wants to people, and it makes him very frustrated and angry. And she's a Quaker and ends up like taking care of him and connecting and everything. I gave it 5 stars, just like I did last time. I think it's a really good book. I saw some issues with it this time, just like with their relationship and everything, but in general I still really enjoyed it. I read The Academy. I can't even remember who this is by. I gave it 2 stars. It's in this like anthology that I got for really cheap. That's a bunch of like new adult stories, and oh my gosh, I like had to force myself to finish this, but I like can't give books 1 star. It's like, it's against my soul, and I finished it, so I guess, you know, it deserves 2 stars. I just didn't like it. It's also, so it's like young adult, new adult-ish. It's, I guess, like a fantasy world, maybe? I don't know. And it's about a woman, it's kind of like a 12th Night story where, like, there's twin siblings, a boy and a girl, and the boy wants to go do something, but his father wants him to go to school, so, like, but the girl's always wanted to go to school, so she pretends to be her brother and all of that. Which, I've talked about this before, is not my favorite trope in the world. I actually typically avoid it because I don't like it. But even beyond that, just the writing in here was very like stilted and I think all of these stories are self-published, but this story in particular felt very like unedited and just like it lacked polish, I guess. I hate saying that. That sounds so mean. I'm sorry. And then I read An Ember in the Ashes by Sabah Tahir. I got this from the library in Overdrive. I originally gave it 4 stars. It might still be 4 stars on Goodreads, I'm not sure, but I've changed it to 3 stars upon further reflection and writing my like tiny nothing review. as I was reading it for like 75% of the book, I was super into it. Like, I was so into it that I was overlooked. Like, I could see problems with it, especially with the world building. But I really cared about it. I really wanted to keep going, and I was interested in these characters, both of them. And then, like, so much so that I immediately went on to Overdrive and was like, let me see if I can borrow the second one and download it so I have it, because I'm like, I'm going to want to read the second one. I also at this point thought it was a duology. And then when I finished it, like the last quarter of it, it didn't work for me. And I don't know, it was just like, it started, all of these like weaknesses with it started to like compound on each other. And I don't know. So I did not read the second book, needless to say. I am very upset that it's not a duology, like that it doesn't have an end at this point. I know a lot of people went into that book originally thinking it was a standalone. At least I didn't do that. Although the reason I did finally pick it up was because I thought it was a duology, so I figured, well, they're both out now, so what does it matter? And I just have a feeling the series could just like go on and on and on forever. I may finish it at some point, but I'm not really sure I feel that drawn to do it. Then I got Do You Want to Start a Scandal by Tessa Dare, which I gave 4 stars. I'm considering raising it. I'm not sure. Perhaps upon a reread. And this is the 5th book in the Spindle Cove series, and then it is related to her Castles Ever After series. Could not remember what it's called. It saved my life. So this follows Charlotte Highwood, and we meet her in the Spindle Cove books, like the earlier books, which is really cute. It was really fun. I feel like it really shows that, like, as I've enjoyed like every Tessa Dare book I've read, so I mean, I don't mean she's bad at all, but like, I feel like she's just getting stronger and stronger and stronger as a writer, which is great. It reminded me a lot of like a Julia Quinn, like Bridgerton novel, where there's just like this magical quality about it. It was very funny. The characters were great. They complemented each other really well. I just really enjoyed it. Like, Tessa Dare is easily an autobiography for me now. And then I was in the mood for some audiobooks because I have been walking. We're having a contest at work where, well, whatever, I'm not going to go into that. But we're having a contest at work that requires me to walk. And so I've been walking a lot, like in the mornings and then after work and at work and everything. And I do like to listen to podcasts, but sometimes I don't want to listen to a podcast. So I decided to go on Overdrive and look for some audiobooks, and I downloaded one called Annoying. And it is by and narrated by 2 individuals from NPR. I don't know what to call them. Hosts, I guess. And it's about them exploring the idea of like what makes things annoying. It's very short. I gave it 3 stars. It was interesting, but it was like lacking a little bit for me. I think maybe if it had been written by like a scientist, it would have been a little better. But I appreciated what they were doing and found it pretty compelling. And then everything changed. I have been wanting to reread this book since I put it down a year ago, and I finally did it. I reread Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder, and I gave it 5 stars again. I picked it up thinking that I could just read it slowly a little bit, like every night. No. Immediately sucked me in again. I'm like in love with this story. I'm in love with Yelena. I'm in love with all of the characters, with this world. I just I would love to be a writer. Reading a book like this equal parts inspires me to write, because it's like the idea that you could write something this beautiful is just mind-blowing, and also 50% makes me want to like never pick up a pen or never like type on a keyboard again, because there's no way I could ever write anything this good to me. Like, the way I feel about these characters and the story, like there's a magic in here that just works for me. Like, I literally feel like I could just read this book, this one, not the series, this book over and over again and be perfectly happy in life. because it is such a beautifully written story with amazing characters. I think Yelena is like the best female protagonist. Like, if you want to write a strong female protagonist, here you go. Like, she is like, she does grow physical strength and she can fight as like the story progresses, but it's more than that. It's like her mental strength and what she goes through and what she's able to overcome, and like, it's, oh my gosh, love her so much, love this story so much. Oh, I missed a book that I never put on here. Oh, I read 12 books. Woo! Hopefully I remember before I stop filming this. So I did really love this, and I was so glad to have read it again. I will say there is a trigger warning for rape in here, in case you wanted to know. I don't think I ever mentioned that the first time I read it, so. And then I read on Maria V. Snyder's website, which is the only place you can get it not as an audiobook, Assassin Study, which takes place between that and the next book. And it is about Valak. And I don't feel comfortable saying who or what it is about, because I feel like it could potentially spoil or put things into your head for the first book. So I don't want to say that. But I did give it 3 stars. I thought it was pretty good. Then I read Inside Out by Maria V. Snyder, which I got as ebook on Overdrive, and I gave it 3 stars, I think, maybe 4. I don't know. I don't have much to say about this. I enjoyed it. Like, I can still tell it's written by Maria V. Snyder, but I don't like it the way I like the study books. So, and it's a duology, but honestly, I don't really feel the need to read the second one. I'm okay with how the first one ended. So then I did reread Magic Study by Maria V. Snyder. Obviously, gave it 5 stars. Even though I gave this 5 stars, Poison Study is still my favorite. Still my favorite. And oh my gosh, oh, so good. All I want to do is keep reading these books, but at the same time just reread Poison Study over and over again. I have a problem. And then I listened to another audiobook. I listened to A Wallflower at the Orgy by Nora Ephron. It's a collection of essays that she wrote in like the late 60s, early 70s, I believe. And I gave this 3 stars. I thought the narrator of the audiobook was fantastic. I loved her voice. She was great. I listened to this mostly while I was walking, and it was a really great compliment to my walk. There's definitely some humor in some of the essays, which I appreciated. A lot of this stuff is very dated, so like, she's mentioning people, I don't know who these people are. Like, she talked about the food scene in like the 60s, and James Beard is like the only, oh, and Julia Child, who doesn't know who Julia Child is. James Beard is the only person that I had ever heard of. So that was kind of weird, but I kind of just threw myself into it. But it was still funny and everything. I would love to listen to her other books. And then the last thing I read also has Wallflower in the title, and that is A Wallflower Christmas by Lisa Kleypas. And so this is related to the Wallflower books, which I am going to do a review sometime this month. At least that is the plan. This takes place after all of them and is about Lillian and Daisy's brother. And I remember not really liking this the first time I read it, and I gave it 3 stars. Still don't particularly like it. I think it's a perfectly okay story. I just don't think it has that Lisa Kleypas magic and everything, but I can appreciate the romance, and I love all of the like connections to that you get to see kind of all of the Wallflower couples for a little bit, which is very nice and cute. So those are the 12 books that I read this month. If you have any comments or questions or anything like that, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. Or if you want to tell me what you read, or if you have any suggestions, anything like that, you can do that as well. So thank you so much for watching. Bye.